Good Friday evening to you. I hope your weekend is off to a great start. Thanks for joining More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. Baseball is back. Major League Baseball opened up last night. Indians get things rolling with a weekend series against the Kansas City Royals. And Major League Baseball beat the deadline and expanded the playoffs for baseball this season. 2020 only. It will be 8 teams in each league. And this is how it breaks down. The top teams in each division, as well as the second place teams in each division, will qualify for the playoffs. 7th and 8th teams with the best records of the remaining teams will also qualify for the postseason. First round is now a best of 3, all 3 games at the top seed's site. This increases the potential maximum amount of playoff games from 65 to 43. It also increases the national television pool for the owners. They will share some of that with the players. As far as the Indians go, Terry Francona absolutely loves this year's group, and he says the expanded playoffs don't really change much at all.
The only way it would change it is if you come down to the last week of the season and you're sitting on one of those spots. It might change the way you do things, but I've always felt like show up, play the best you can. You're going to end up where you're supposed to. I've always felt that way.
Tito, you've made reference to this from the very start of this summer camp. There were going to be challenges here that you've never faced before. Just as you're about to embark on the season, when you think about the baseball itself, the pandemic, the racial injustice conversations, what can you say about the way your groups collectively handled everything?
I'm really proud of our group. And I think anybody that you guys have shown up just about every day to ask me questions, and it's been pretty consistent. You know, if you spend 5 or 10 minutes with me, you know I'm really crazy about that group of guys in there. Not just when they hit the ball well, when they play well. They're really fun to again, you try to see if you can be better than the other team. And I enjoy doing it with the group of guys we have. And that only continues to get stronger as I'm around them more and I see the way they behave themselves or their opinions on things or the way they're conscientious about stuff. It just grows.
Terry Francona happy about the way his team has performed as they get ready to open the season against the Royals. Let's welcome in Indians beat reporter for cleveland.com as well as the plain dealer Joe Noga. Joe, what do you make of this team? What do you expect when you look at the 2020 Indians, a 60-game season? What comes to mind and what are your expectations?
I think expectations are playoffs, reasonable right there with the expansion to 8 teams in each league. I thought the Indians were a playoff team before they announced the expanded playoffs. I think they're a lock for the playoffs right now. 34 to 37 wins is going to guarantee pretty much a spot in the postseason. And I think they can definitely achieve that just by playing average baseball for them with their starting rotation and the way it's going to work out. If you can throw Shane Bieber and Mike Clevenger out there for 10, 11 starts each, maybe 12 each, your chances are pretty good.
Now, I think Tito just, when you said lock, I think he just flinched a little bit. But you mentioned the rotation, and certainly ranked by a lot of people as one of the top in baseball. When I look at it, I see Bieber, a guy who's done it for a year. Clevenger, who when he's healthy is really good. Carrasco's coming back from cancer, for goodness sakes. And then you got Plesac, who looked really good in limited starts, and Savali. They're young. I mean, is that a concern at all this is basically a pennant race when you start the season with 60 games. Are you concerned at all?
Right, and yes, they're young. But if you look at Savali, let's take Savali for example, because he started the most recent exhibition game. After that game, Terry Francona repeated what he said multiple times when Savali has pitched throughout the exhibition season. He pitches beyond his years. This is something that echoes what he would say about Shane Bieber throughout last season and the year before. just because they're young doesn't mean that that the talent isn't there and that they can't put it together. Savali came in after the 4-month layoff, and he was stretched out and locked in and ready to go. He's up to 100 pitches. He could throw a complete game right now. I think if circumstances presented themselves. Shane Bieber the same way. He was focused in, locked in, ready to go back in back in spring training in March. Now he's even more ready to go. He's been waiting for this opening day since mid-March. I think that's just a really good sign for the starting rotation. Plesac he's got all the stuff, all the talent that the other two have, and he's unflappable. I don't think he's been so steady when we talk to him after his exhibition starts, after his inter-squad games, just talking about things he has to tinker with. I think really the more of a concern for me than the young guys in the rotation are the older guys in the rotation who don't seem as stretched out right now. Clevenger coming back off the knee surgery, and Carrasco. I think you're only going to be able to get 5 innings out of those guys at the start, in their first couple of outings.
Well, certainly the development guys in the Indian system have done a great job, because young guy after young guy, and these aren't first, second round picks, third, fifth, seventh, 10th round picks, have come up and been ready to contribute at the major league level. First time they've gone out to the mound. Let me ask you this. Who is a guy that you think is the best in addition? And we'll leave it open to guys that the Indians acquired late, guys that are coming back from injury. Best addition to that lineup. When you look at Lindor, Ramirez, Santana, that's 2, 3, 4. You expect them to do well. Who needs to do well other than those three for the Indians to be successful offensively?
I think the obvious answer there is Cesar Hernandez at the top of the order. Cesar Hernandez gave Terry Francona the confidence to be able to put him up there and drop Francisco Lindor to the third spot, where Frankie's going to be able to really, improve his RBI totals and drive in more runs, have more opportunities there. And so far in the exhibitions and in the inter-squad games, he's proven that he's comfortable in that 3-hole. If Cesar Hernandez can get on base the way that he could get on base, prior to the 2019 season, I think it's really going to change things and really open things up for the offense for the Indians. Another guy to sort of keep an eye on as far as new additions to the lineup, Domingo Santana is going to get a chance to play in the outfield. And now that he's healthy after a season where he had arm issues in Seattle, if he can hold down the fort for a couple innings in the outfield before you start subbing guys and getting defensive replacements in there, his bat can be special. Last year we saw him help Seattle to a really fast start, leading the league in home runs and runs scored. So he's a guy who has potential to really impact the lineup. And don't forget about Oscar Mercado dropping down in the order in a new spot. He spent most of the season batting in the 2-hole last year. He's going to have to make adjustments, hitting sort of closer to Roberto Perez in the order down the line for Terry Francona.
Well, the other thing about Hernandez is, in what I've seen inter-squad as well as the exhibition games, looks like a professional hitter. This is a guy that can get on base, can run a little bit, and most important thing, and I think the reason Francona's willing to hit him leadoff, he has a really good idea of the strike zone. And I mean, giving Francisco Lindor the ability to hit third is huge, because that puts him in RBI opportunities.
Right. And like you said, Cesar Hernandez will take a walk, and that's a good thing. You've got guys, Tito said, as far as the 2-hole versus the 4-hole for Jose Ramirez and Carlos Santana, the only reason he's batting Jose in the 2-hole is because Jose's got a little more speed. Carlos Santana would have been a great guy to put in the 2-hole as well. As long as you've got a guy like Hernandez and a guy like Santana or Ramirez on base ahead of Lindor, your offense is going to seem totally different this year.
Yeah, and the other thing is with Mercado down at the bottom of the order, that gives you the ability to flip it as well. You have speed at the bottom of the order, with potentially Hernandez hitting with them on base later in the game. So those are all interesting. Now let me ask you the gloom and doom question. What is it that could derail this 2020 season for the Indians? The thing that maybe, boy, if this happens, maybe that's not a lock to make the playoffs.
Well, it's the coronavirus. It's what's Terry Francona has been talking about since we sort of started coming back to the park. Is the one thing that's going to separate the team that wins at the end is who's going to be the club that gets their guys, gets the most guys, and gets all their important key guys through the end of the season healthy. If the Indians can do that, if they can maintain all their social distancing and wear masks and sanitize their hands and make sure that Frankie Lindor doesn't catch the virus and Shane Bieber doesn't catch the virus, I think they've got as good a chance of any of, contending for the AL Central. Obviously, the Twins' offense is a juggernaut, but that could happen. They could make it into the playoffs, and with the Indians starting rotation in a short 3-game series, you got to like their chances to be able to advance.
Fair enough. The other thing is in a short season, an offense can go cold. You want to be built more on. It's more likely an offense would go cold on a short season than a pitching staff. 1 through 5 would go cold. Joe Noga, Indians beat reporter from cleveland.com, as always. Appreciate the insight. And one thing is certain, baseball set to get started over at Jacobs Field. Indians beat reporter Joe Noga for cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. We're going to stay on the Indians in this opening weekend against the Kansas City Royals and welcome in Plain Dealer and cleveland.com columnist Doug Lesmerises. Doug, as always, we appreciate the time. Baseball is here. What do you expect from the Indians in this 60-game season?
I think it's possible the 60-game season is built for them. And I wrote about this on cleveland.com, but they have hitters, specifically Francisco Lindor and Jose Ramirez, who can get scalding hot. Yes, at times over the past 3 years, there have been months when the two of them have been the best hitters in the American League. And so when you have a smaller payroll team, you're not going to have necessarily all-stars 1 through 9 in the lineup. But I think it's possible that if Lindor and Ramirez start hot, a shorter season with the starting rotation they have, and you lean on Lindor, Ramirez, and Carlos Santana, I don't know. This feels like a team that maybe is positioned to catch lightning in a bottle as much as any team in the American League, and that's what a 60-game season is going to be. It's not about the long haul. It's practically you're almost in playoff mode right from the start. Not quite, but almost. So I'm very intrigued to see if the Indians can start hot, or their best guys can start hot and carry them.
The rotation, everybody thinks is one of the best in baseball. Are you concerned at all? It's awfully young. I mean, Shane Bieber, I know he was the All-Star MVP and has done well. Clevenger hadn't been able to stay healthy. Carrasco's coming back from cancer, basically. Let's not sugarcoat it. And then you got two young guys who have looked good, but now the league has had a chance to look at them a little bit.
No, I'm not concerned. I mean, I've covered enough baseball in my time. I mean, there are teams where you get to the second starter in the rotation, you're like, I have no idea what's going to happen here. So the idea that, their ace is a young, cheap, all-star MVP. Clevenger, yes, has had some injury issues, but he came back pretty well last year. Carrasco, yes, of course, but he certainly has done it before. And a guy like Aaron Savali, I mean, people are really high on this guy. I actually think, that we've seen it over the past couple of years with the Indians. They often start off feeling like they have too much pitching. And then something will go wrong, right? They've had multiple things go wrong. You look at it last year with Kluber and Carrasco and Clevenger and those things, and all of a sudden they don't have enough pitching. But, I mean, just compared to the rest of the world, you can't be worried about the Indians starting rotation. And not a guarantee it's going to go perfectly, but I certainly feel good about the first 4 guys. And as long as you don't have really, really, really bad luck, I think they'll be in great shape.
What about some of the guys either coming back from injury or new additions, talking about Naquin, Zimmer, Hernandez? Who do you think needs to have a good year offensively for this lineup to do what it's capable of doing?
I looked up some numbers for you, Dave, which is hard for me to do. So you feel special. But I don't know. I think I'm probably not the only person in Cleveland who remains intrigued by Bradley Zimmer, right? You just wonder. A lost season last year, but it's also very hard. He's a year older than Francisco Lindor. He's a full year older than Lindor. Lindor in his major league career has 3,244 plate appearances. Bradley Zimmer has 460. So it's like you're thinking like, man, I still like Bradley Zimmer's potential. He's 27. This is like when guys are hitting their prime. So there's a part of me that would like to think, boy, oh boy, what if he really pulls it together, offers defense, maybe he could be a little bit of a table setter at the bottom of the lineup to help get things to the top of the lineup. But even when he's played, he doesn't get on base that much. So, I'm sort of like, okay, if he's back, let's see what he can do. But man, the clock is ticking on that guy. So I'm intrigued by him, but I also, in looking things up, realized maybe I shouldn't be putting too many eggs in that basket.
Yeah, former number one or first round pick, not number one, but a first round pick. And let me ask you this: how much of an advantage is it that the Indians have Terry Francona as their manager in a 60-game season? Certainly, a guy that is willing and understands. There's a difference in how he has to manage this year as opposed to years past.
Well, I think Tito is two things, and one is good, and one might be bad in a shortened season. One is that he will work it, right? The idea of like this bigger bullpen, it feels like there's a lot of options in the bullpen, but maybe not a million sure things. You've seen the way that he's managed the bullpen in the past in the playoffs. You can see him kind of keeping that together with masking tape, right? That I like the idea of enough options, and Terry Francona, he can patch that together. The other defining characteristic about Terry Francona is his loyalty. And if you are too loyal to the wrong players who start cold, the season will be over before they have a chance to heat up again. He is a guy who has stuck with players, and sometimes it does pay off. You can't act like his loyalty is a bad thing all the time, but you also can't act like the loyalty is a good thing 100% of the time. So as much as I've talked about, boy, what if Ramirez and Lindor and a bunch of guys are hot right away? It's also, if there's a guy or two in that lineup who just is ice cold for the first 2 weeks, man, like the season is gonna get old quick. So will Terry Francona be able to maybe pull a plug on a guy and get somebody else in that lineup, try something different? When, you look at what he did with Jason Kipnis and guys like that. He's so loyal, and sometimes it's rewarded, but I don't know if you can be as loyal when the season's only 2 months long.
Yeah, that will definitely be a fascinating thing to watch this year is how quickly he's willing to move on. Last thing I'll ask you on the Indians, expanded playoff format, 8 teams in each league. Do you like it? Are you a fan? What did you think? And boy, it came down to the wire. I think it was about an hour and 20 minutes before the first pitch, which was the deadline. They finally agreed to it.
I think it makes sense. I think the idea is giving the best teams a chance. I don't like gigantic playoffs. I like baseball's playoffs better than I like the NHL's playoffs or something where, you can be an 8 seed and get a hot goalie in the Stanley Cup. And I don't think that's what it's all about, because it really should be about the regular season. But the regular season is so truncated. Maybe a team has a key player who misses time because of a COVID test. Maybe, all of a sudden you have the normal bumps and bruises of a season, but all of a sudden missing a guy for 2 weeks is a huge chunk of the year. So you could have a team who, for a third of this short season or even half this short season, isn't really who they are because of COVID or other injuries. And maybe you really do want that team in the playoffs, because then by the end of the year, if they are who you thought they were, and it was kind of some stuff out of their control, give those teams, if you can try to, be around 500 and keep it together, that kind of team I think probably should be in the playoffs. So I like the idea for this one time to expand it and maybe give a few more teams like that an opportunity at the World Series, because there will be a team or two like that who really is good enough to win a World Series and just had something screwy happen in this screwy season.
Doug Lesmerises, columnist for cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. When we return, Doug will rejoin us. We'll shift our focus to the NFL and our Cleveland Browns. Can the Owners and Players Association agree in time to get things started next week for training camp? More sports and Les Levine. The Weekend Winners Edition will be right back. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Do you like Ohio State football? Would you like to get information from me, Doug Lesmerises, about Ohio State football without having to look at my face? We have got the plan for you. Become an Ohio State text subscriber through cleveland.com. You send a text, 614-350-3315. What do you get? 2, 3, 4 texts right in your phone every day about Ohio State football. Inside information, polls, voting, all kinds of things. You can be on our podcast. We take text subscriber questions on our Buckeye Talk podcast every week. If you really want to be involved with Ohio State football, in season or out of season, become an Ohio State text subscriber from cleveland.com. Send a text to 614-350-3315. 14-day free trial. What do you have to lose? $3.99 a month after that. 614-350-3315. I'll see you in your phone.
As a kid growing up, my dream was to go to college, play baseball, and get a degree. Coming out of high school, I had 2 choices. I was accepted into a 4-year university, but I decided to come to Tri-C after receiving a scholarship. I got my associate's degree at Tri-C. They transferred all my credits straight into Baldwin-Wallace, so I started at Baldwin-Wallace University as a junior. My name is Tyler Leonard, and I earned my first degree at Tri-C.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. More sports and Les Levine. The Weekend Winners Edition continues. I'm Dave Bacon. Doug Lesmerises from cleveland.com, the Plain Dealer columnist, will join us in just a minute. Let's talk a little bit about the Browns. Now, reports are that Jedrick Wills, Browns' first-round pick as well as the 10th overall pick, and Baker Mayfield will be tested for COVID today, Friday, and that will enable them, if they are good and test negative, to join and get training camp underway 5-6 days, so the middle of the week when everything is scheduled to get going. Now, the key here is the Players Association and the owners haven't come to an agreement yet on all of the protocol with testing as well as the financials. There's a couple of sticking points, and they really need to get that ironed out by Sunday to get everything rolling. Again, let's welcome in Doug Lesmerises. Doug, the columnist for cleveland.com. And as well as the Plain Dealer. Doug, do you think they get this done? I mean, they've agreed on a number of things. There's like 3 areas that appear to be sticking points. One of them is pretty important. It's the financial implications of the pandemic moving forward. Do they get it done, do you think, on time?
Yeah, I think they do. I mean, right, deadlines make all of us get stuff done. I've never written a story in my life until the deadline and it was due and people were screaming to get it done. So that's how these negotiations work. And I actually think the way the NFL has gone about this, it's been messy and it's been public the past week, but I think it's probably better than what we've seen elsewhere. You know, one of the things with college football that I don't like is that there isn't a players association. There isn't a second side of it. It's teams telling the players how it's going to be. And certainly in a pro league in the NFL with players' power, they're not going to be told anything. So you saw the concerted effort by the players to express, their voice, to say, we need to figure this out. They made their points clear. this window that they're working in, they certainly feel like they're moving quicker on this stuff than baseball did, when baseball took weeks and weeks and weeks to figure all this stuff out. So this is safety here. This is long-term health implications here. This isn't just, salary cap stuff and the normal bargaining issues. Now, that stuff is folded in, but this is as serious as it gets. So yeah, it's going to be messy and complicated, but I do think you're moving toward a point where you have to give on some of this stuff. Both sides have to give some, but in the end, you have to be safe. You have to be as safety conscious and put the health of the players first. Have some kind of caveats for if guys have health issues related to COVID, how are they going to be paid, that kind of thing. But I think you do work that out. I'm assuming they get it done by the deadline on Sunday. And I think this is just the progress of this is like the best you can do, I think, under the circumstances. And the best is still messy, but I do think they'll get it figured out.
Yeah, and you know what? You certainly can understand the players' point of view in this one, because football, unlike baseball, there's going to be guys getting up and off of other guys on the team. Socially distant is not something you want to be if you're a football player. You got to be up in there with the opposition.
I think one of the things in here, and I'm not a doctor, but the NCAA, when they put out their latest suggestions and guidelines about this, they pointed this out, and there have been other medical experts who have pointed this out. A bigger people, a BMI, a body mass index, over a certain threshold might put you at greater risk for coronavirus complications if you get it. And lots of football players are over that, right? Especially linemen. They're just bigger guys. They have to be. So I do think even that part of the sport, that there may be some indication that the larger individual you are, that may be a complicating factor with this disease. And so that ramps it up even a little bit more, I think, compared to Major League Baseball. You don't have a lot of 300-pounders in Major League Baseball. So I just think there are a lot more considerations with football. And that's why both sides have to take it seriously, and they have to come at it. They have to be on equal footing. The owners and the players have to do this together. But I do think the deadline will sort of force them to do it together, and I think they can find an agreement.
Well, the shift gears, and Browns hired another offensive assistant, this time a senior offensive assistant, Kevin Rogers, who was basically a mentor to Kevin Stefanski. Had a lot of coaches, and Kevin Rogers appears to be a little bit of a duplicate in that he made his stock as a quarterback coach. What do you make of that hiring? Are you concerned there's too many people that are going to be coaching Baker Mayfield this year?
So I think you have to let head coaches hire some of their friends, right? Especially first time around. They've never been a head coach. They want to have some people around them who they think are going to have their back, who they can, if they're struggling, they can lean on, they are in the room with them. But I like the idea of hiring your friend in addition to the most qualified person, as opposed to instead of the most qualified person. I thought it was an issue last year when Ryan Lindley was the Browns quarterbacks coach, and he was Freddie Kitchens' friend, and he wasn't really qualified for the job. So if Kevin Stefanski's bringing in the guy who was his mentor, and he's, duplicative of what's already there, great. Because it would be much worse if he had only hired his friend, right? So I'm okay with it. I get it. Kevin Stefanski's a young dude. You want your mentor by your side. If you're going to be picking up the phone and calling this guy anyway, and then trying to explain what's going on, well, you know what? If he's in the building, you don't have to explain, and you don't have to call him on the phone. You can walk down the hall. So I am totally okay with this, because he's in addition to, not instead of.
Now, the other thing that's come out, there's likely not going to be any preseason games. How big of a disadvantage is that? Well, but again, we've got a new head coach, a new offensive system, a guy that's never called plays, hasn't said he's going to call plays. There's a lot to work out in training camp if you're in the Browns situation.
Listen, I mean, this is the thing, right? College football is doing this too, in a way. I mean, the Big Ten cancels non-conference games. What are Bowling Green and Buffalo for Ohio State other than preseason games? So everything with football, when you cancel the prep, your assumption is that people who are in a position they've been in before are at an advantage, and the people who are doing new things are at a disadvantage. So, new head coach, new play calling structure. Yeah, I mean, that's probably, compared to Andy Reid in Kansas City, the Browns are probably going to feel the loss of preseason games more than quarterbacks and coaches who have been together for a couple years. So I get it. What are you going to do, right? I mean, at Ohio State, people are saying, well, Ryan Day and Justin Fields probably are at an advantage because they're bringing back an experienced quarterback who has been in the system for a year. So it's part of the deal. Preseason silly. You certainly don't need 4. If 0 this year helps lead us to 2 in the future or something, yes, of course, it's going to be at least a minor issue, I think, for teams with new coaches or new quarterback. But I think they'll find a way. They'll simulate it in their own way, right? They'll just run things where they are running some kind of simulated play calling structure in practice where they're acting like it's a game, and they'll have, whether it's Alex Van Pelt or Kevin Stefanski, they'll be sequencing plays and working things out. So they'll find a way. And in the end, I'm not going to bemoan the loss of preseason games too much.
I know season ticket holders are right behind you with that one because they had to pay full go for those preseason games. Let me ask you this: who calls the plays? If you were a betting man, who do you think calls them? Kevin Stefanski or Alex Van Pelt?
I do think it's possible that if Kevin Stefanski was open to the idea of Alex Van Pelt doing it, preseason would have been like, you know what? Let's give Alex Van Pelt a run. I think it would have been very possible that, like, Alex Van Pelt is good, it's smooth, it's right in the zone that Kevin Stefanski wants. Kevin Stefanski gets a look of his offense happening before his eyes without him having to call the plays. That would have been reassuring. If he had any doubts in the back of his mind, I think Alex Van Pelt could have soothed them with a practice run. I think maybe you increase the chances now of Kevin Stefanski saying, like, listen, man, I'm a first-time head coach. The guy who I'm going to hand the play calling duties to didn't even get to practice it. We're going into week 1 with the team that we think can make the playoffs. Sorry, bro, I'm doing it. I do think maybe you up that ante a little bit by losing preseason games just because you don't have the chance to test it out. And without that, who do you trust the most? Trust yourself.
Yeah, that's a very good point. First-year head coach who is installing his offense. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, Doug will rejoin us, and we will be talking about a guy that Kevin Stefanski will be trusting quite a bit in that offense. More sports and Les Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. Will be right back. Stay with us.
Wow! Get Nature's Stone and never replace your garage flooring again. Act now for huge summer savings on our exclusive Nature's Blend Stone, as low as $2.99 a square foot plus installation. Only Nature's Stone eliminates cracked, uneven concrete, and Nature's Stone never peels like cheap paints and coatings. Safe, beautiful garage flooring that's always backed by Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty. Schedule your free cost estimate easily online today at naturestone.com. It's not just a floor.
Wow, it's Nature's Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to More Sports and Les Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. cleveland.com, and plain dealer columnist Doug Lesmerises will be rejoining us in just a minute. Let's take a look at next-gen stats. These are the analytic guys, driven stats, and we're going to look at exceeding expected yards per rush for running backs. Now, this is an effort by the analytics guys to take the offensive line out of the equation, and this is tops in the league. Derrick Henry at 1.05 exceeded yards per carry. Number 2 is Nick Chubb at 0.91, almost a yard. Josh Jacobs is 0.81. Christian McCaffrey, everybody loves him. He's ranked 4th. Saquon Barkley is 5th. Now, Chubb's 0.91 is down from his 2018 mark of 1.34 yards above expected total per carry. No one has even come close to that mark the 2 years that Next Gen has been doing these stats. Give me an example. The 88-yard touchdown run that Chubb had against the Ravens was expected to go as a 7-yard gain. He turned it into an 88-yard touchdown run. So very interesting stats from Next Gen. Let's welcome Doug Lesmerises back in. So Doug, I know you're a big stat geek and you love these things, but it's an attempt to quantify how effective a running back is, and I think those of us that have seen Nick Chubb would tend to agree with that. The interesting thing is, too, Derrick Henry, who was the top in that list, loses one of his best run blockers in Jack Conklin, and he's coming over to block for Nick Chubb.
So what the assumption statistically is that if Greg Robinson and Eric Bush are blocking for you, you're going to be tackled immediately, and if Nick Chubb gets a couple yards,
what it does is it takes into account when the defender gets to within a yard of you. And I think it's safe to assume that when Greg Robinson and Eric Bush are, it's going to happen a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I mean, it is, right? I mean, it's you fantasize a little bit about Nick Chubb running behind a great offensive line, which is maybe what you think the Browns have put together this year with drafting a guy in the top 10 and adding the most expensive tackle on the market. So part of it is, too, I mean, sometimes when you're not getting as much help, you're forced to do more on your own, right? And so then you have the opportunity to do more on your own. So maybe behind a better line, Nick Chubb won't rank as high on that list statistically, a year from now. But I do think we've seen it enough with Chubb. I mean, that's what great backs do, right? You need your line to take care of some portion of it, give you maybe a first hole to get through, and then you've got to take care of guys on your own. You've got to make a linebacker miss. You've got to shed a tackle, do something with the safety, not go down on the first hit if a guy in the defensive line is getting to you. So it's why when we think about the potential of this Browns offense, I don't even know how you would quantify how much better this offensive line might be. I mean, they were fooling themselves going into last year. They knew they weren't going to be good. They were just hoping it would be okay, and it wasn't. And when you see the changes they've made, what Nick Chubb could do statistically, he is who he is. He's a great back. But what he could do statistically with a more efficient pass game, and then, you're probably better at 3 spots on the offensive line. I mean, he could have an all-time kind of year.
Well, the other thing is you have a coach who is committed to running the football, at least has a history of being committed to running the football. And, there were times last year where you're kind of scratching your head going, why aren't you giving the ball to Nick Chubb more? And I don't think that's going to be a question this year with the way they want to run the football.
And I think we've talked about this before, Dave. I agree, but I also don't think anybody, runs their way to the Super Bowl, right? I mean, you got to throw passing league. I mean, you got to take advantage of Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry and Austin Hooper and all the, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the passing game, right? So, yes, the commitment to the run and the style of run that Kevin Stefanski is going to bring in here is probably going to be good for Baker Mayfield, but in the end, I don't think Nick Chubb can carry this team into the second round of the playoffs. They need to have a very functional, high-level passing game to complement one of the best backs in the league.
They need to be able to run the ball when they get close to the goal line, which was something they can never figure out with Freddie Kitchens a season ago. Now, and another thing that we've talked about is linebacking. And let's take a look at Pro Football Focus's linebacking ratings for the upcoming season. So the interesting thing about this, Seattle, Dallas, Tampa Bay, okay. Then you get down to the Super Bowl teams, San Francisco is 10, Kansas City 25, Pittsburgh and Baltimore in the Browns division, who teams that are playoff teams, 11 and 20, and the Browns are down at 31. Doug, to me, I'm looking at this going, boy, this is living proof that linebacking play doesn't equate to really good football teams on defense. So again, I know it's analytically driven. This front office is analytically driven, but if you got to be weak somewhere, it would appear linebacking is a pretty good place to be not as great.
I don't care about linebackers. I feel like we've had this conversation both with you, Dave, and with Les many times. And this feels like it proves the point that I've been making. You can't be excellent everywhere with the talent distribution and the money distribution. And I think linebacker is a smart place to go young and go cheap. Would I have liked Joe Schobert to be here in an ideal world? Absolutely, for sure. And maybe if Andrew Berry had been here a year early, maybe they would have got him locked up and would have kept him here. But the idea of young, mid-round draft picks, leaning on them, you hope maybe by the end of the year they're not 31st. But I don't care if they're in the top 10. Maybe the young guys they have can get this linebacking core at 22nd. But nobody leans on their linebackers to win a Super Bowl, I don't think. If your young guys turn out to be really good while they're cheap, awesome bonus. But this is not a position where this Andrew Berry front office is going to go out and sign big money guys. And so this is how it's going to be. And just maybe the idea of if Mac Wilson and Sione Takitaki and some of these other guys develop and then they want to keep them around and pay them, but they can get them for a good rate, maybe they'll get a good linebacking core. But I think what your numbers are showing is that's why the Browns are doing this at linebacker, because it's not the most important position.
Is it as simple as you got guys in front of the linebackers putting pressure on the quarterback and shutting down the run, and guys behind him making sure you can't throw beyond them? You want to defend the middle of the field. Is it as simple as it's just the way the game has evolved, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's about rushing the passer and having corners who can defend top-level receivers, right? It's about shutting down the passing game. Now, the one thing about a guy like Joe Schobert, he was great in coverage. And the issue, people when they analyzed Joe Schobert, well, did he miss tackles? Well, how good was he against the run? But he's one of the better coverage linebackers in the league. So that kind of linebacker, covering tight ends, covering guys over the middle, yeah, that is important. But it's about priority. And I'm just in a world, I'm going to prioritize Denzel Ward. I'm going to prioritize Myles Garrett. I'm going to prioritize Olivier Vernon. And I get it. And now, again, the way you become a great team is not by being terrible at a position. It's by not prioritizing that position financially, yet getting really good production because your young guys or your cheap guys or your young cheap guys play really well. So I'm not saying that these young linebackers, it's okay if they stink. I'm saying that I understand the idea of that's the position where you're going young and cheap and hoping that you hit on a couple of these picks and that they can be pretty good, and that should be more than enough.
Last thing I'll ask you, you a big fan of the extension to Myles Garrett, getting him done a year early? I know it cost you some significant guaranteed money. How big of a fan are you of what Andrew Berry did with Myles Garrett and when he did it?
Yeah, I think it on the field it's important. I think off the field it's important. I wrote about it at the time. Fans have a player they can grasp onto, and Myles Garrett is coming off a situation that he still has to prove, and he said all the right things, but he needs to get back on the field and shake off what happened against the Steelers. But this guy who has a chance to be an all-time Brown, the kind of guy that fans will have as their favorite player for a decade. And that is hugely important to a fan base and a franchise, in addition to being a great player. But as I said, he doesn't have to be the best defensive player in the league. He doesn't have to single-handedly lead the Browns to the Super Bowl. He needs to be a good player, and who doesn't think he will be? And it's great for Browns fans to have a guy that they can love for 10 years. So I'm totally in on it. He's going to end up being a bargain by year, 2 or 3 of that contract, because the next defensive end is going to get an even bigger deal. So good for Myles Garrett, good for Andrew Berry, but I think most importantly, good for Browns fans.
Doug Lesmerises, columnist for cleveland.com as well as Plain Dealer, as always. Appreciate the time and the insight. And now we are going to step aside, take a quick time out. When we return, some of the best from social media. Socially distant, straight ahead with more sports. And Les Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition continues. Stay with us.
As a kid growing up, my dream was to go to college, play baseball, and get a degree. Coming out of high school, I had two choices. I was accepted into a four-year university, but I decided to come to Tri-C after receiving a scholarship. I got my associate's degree at Tri-C. They transferred all my credits straight into Baldwin-Wallace, so I started at Baldwin-Wallace University as a junior. My name is Tyler Leonard, and I earned my first degree at Tri-C.
Well, hello, everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about Browns Football Insider. For only $3.99 a month, you can get text sent right to your phone each day from me, Dan Lobby, Scott Pasco, and Ellis Williams. In addition to that, you'll receive a Football Insider newsletter every day with special things from us, things that you won't see anywhere else on the site. You'll get breaking news, analysis, features, film breakdown, and things like that. Texting us directly gives you a great chance to cut through the clutter of Facebook, Twitter, other social media, and avoid the trolls. Also, it's the only way to get your questions on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. So why should you sign up? Try a 14-day free trial. You can cancel at any time. All it takes is one text, but you won't want to cancel. We have hundreds of subscribers join us over the last year. They love it and have stayed with us. We're seeing the Football Insider community grow every week. And it's only $3.99 a month, which is less than 14 cents a day. What I like most about Football Insider is the opportunity to connect with you one-on-one and really communicate with you. So how can you become a Football Insider? You can click on cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. Or easier yet, text me at 216-208-3965. Again, that's 216-208-3965.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant, whatever it takes.
And to keep your family comfortable, it takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling. Find them at smiley1.com.
Welcome back to More Sports and Les Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. Almost all out of time, but before we go, a chance to look at some of the best that social media has to offer. We have crowd noise being piped into Major League Baseball games, some soccer fans with a unique way around social distancing, as well as a Minnesota Vikings quarterback TikTok challenge. It's all in this week's Socially Distant segment. Baseball is back with MLB piping in crowd noise for games even though no fans are present. Cincinnati Reds first baseman Joey Votto has an opinion.
Am I comfortable with the crowd noise? I'm guessing somebody not in uniform decided to put crowd noise up. I'd be astounded if somebody that's currently playing thinks that's a good idea.
On the topic of fans, some soccer crazies in Poland have solved the social distancing dilemma. This is a second division team, Motor Lublin. And yes, those are cranes high in the air with fans on them watching the action. Finally, the Minnesota Vikings came up with a TikTok challenge to engage fans. They could catch a pass virtually from Kirk Cousins. Cousins and the Vikings are finding out this can be a rough crowd. No word on if their rival Bears are working on a similar challenge. You gotta love football fans. They can be brutal at times, says Kirk Cousins airmailing that one to one of the Vikings fans. Well, that'll do it for this edition of More Sports and Les Levine, the Weekend Winners edition. We'll see you again next Friday. Remember, Les Levine back in the chair Monday night. Daryl Ryder is scheduled to be the guest. We'll see you again next Friday. Have a great weekend, everyone, and stay safe.